Sometimes for writing, that's I have Francis Livingston here, and we're talking about drawing, but I just had Greg Newbold on, and he said something, and you hear some. For me as a writer, you hear a word or just something that clicks. I'm sure it's the same for you in painting, but it just go, oh, that's a whole. You can see a whole book in 4 letters,
Yeah,
4 words.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you must see that in painting as well sometimes.
Oh yeah,
You see something that inspires you. Maybe it's another artist painting. I don't know.
it's another artist painting. Just almost anything really, and it depends on the moment.
Yeah.
And it depends on whether you retain that. And
That's the thing,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's easy to be inspired and then forget it.
Yeah.
But when you get a good one, it's like, oh, I got to write this down or something.
Yeah, or it stays with
Something
you too.
sticks.
Yeah. I don't write too much stuff down, in terms of ideas but if it's an idea that I really think, oh, it stays with me. It does. It may not come out for several years, but it happens when it happens.
Yeah. Is that the same with drawing, or is drawing completely different?
No, it's the same with drawing too. Yeah. For me, drawing is just it's very much like my painting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always that way. When I was starting as an illustrator, that's what I did mostly was drawing. I did pen and ink, and I did a lot of pen and ink work
For illustration?
For illustration.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I loved doing that. Dipping it was like a crow quill kind of thing, and drawing and put washes of color or washes of grays into it, and it was advertising stuff,
and does that harken back to your comic loves of comic and doing comics?
Definitely, because that's where I started using the pen and ink. Was trying to do comics and stuff.
And how old were you when you were doing that kind of stuff?
Oh, I was when I first started. I was just a kid, but when I was like 17 and 18, and after I went to my first art school, that was when I really started understanding how to make pictures. It's really not in school, not in school so much, but after.
In what respect?
Well, in the sense, schools are like they throw a lot of stuff out at you, and you have a variety of instructors, and the instructors are they're good, many of them, and many of them have different ideas than you, and to be expected actually to have some change or some epiphany of your art career or work during and after you get out of art school is like, no, it doesn't happen. It happens long after you start doing work, and then you start going,
when you start building the muscle,
you start exactly.
You're setting I haven't gone to art school, but I can see that would be the basis of it's like like medical school. You learn all the components of the human body, right? Histology and anatomy and all this stuff.
Sure.
And then, which has really nothing to do with being a physician.
Yeah.
But it has everything to do with being a physician.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand how the organs and everything work to be able to then take it to practical use, and you really start learning when you're out seeing patients.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Well, that's it. And with art, and especially with drawing. I mean, drawing is like this, and you probably heard this from other artists too. It's the basis for everything.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
Even if you get to the point where many times you don't start something with a drawing, maybe you start something with laying in some paint. You're still thinking in your muscle memory and in your visual language of drawing with the paint in the beginning. At least I am.
And every paint.
Yeah. Just because if you lose your way, right? You can block in paint and whatever, but if you lose your way, I always go back to drawing. Okay, I need to find the edge of this thing, and I need to, and then you can. It may not look like it always, but it's always there.
And you'll draw on the canvas, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen your canvases before. They were really. I also remember one time you had this big drawing. I forget. It was lots of poplar trees or something,
Right.
aspens. Very in-depth thing, and it's like, that's great. And you go, oh, I'm just gonna throw that away, and I'm like, why are you throwing that away? I was like, well, it's just
It's
drawing.
it's the way the way I look at a lot of drawings. They're just they're it's part of the process, and if I really think in terms of like, oh, I want to create a drawing, and the drawing is the final
Right.
result.
Mm-hmm.
Then I actually throw a lot more things into that than just the.
It changes.
It does
because
it does.
of its purpose is different.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So when you did the pieces you did here,
Mm-hmm.
that was that route.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it, make a line, and I purposely choose materials that I can manipulate that aren't too delicate. I have the skill set. I can draw very delicately and render, but I don't particularly enjoy that. Not anymore. I used to do that for different things, but so what it's really a mix of what I do with paint now and what I do with the drawing material. So I'll start out with a charcoal or Conti type of material, a drawing stick of whatever material that I can smear, that I throw turpentine on it.
This is on the canvas?
It's on the paper.
On this one for this, okay.
For the work that's in the
drawing
show,
yeah.
Because it doesn't matter as long as what you wind up with in the end is what is
your vision,
is my vision, or the image that you want to wind up with. So to me, it's all about, again, the same way I treat a painting. From, okay, here's the building blocks, and here's the way this looks, and here's the way, and then mess it up, and then what's left? And then discovery again, and lift out things and put detail in, and then to me that's enjoyable. I'm just into that creation, and it's.
So did you enjoy making these drawings?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was a little different, a little more creative, getting delicate.
It was, because I haven't worked that way in a while,
Right,
and because you draw something on a canvas or a board,
right?
But it's basically a guideline for your paint,
right?
This was like, what do I do with this to make this work? And
challenged you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And it wasn't the work I did was. I did some nice things in the beginning, but I thought, that's not substantial enough. That's not what I want. And so I keep digging.
Right.
And it's easy to get overworked too with that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I bet.
But you just have to know. You have to just kind of know that, hey, I don't know, have faith, I guess,
right.
in your own ability to pull it out
that
at the
it's
end.
going to come out somewhere.
But it keeps you. For me, it keeps me on the edge. And it's just, again, it's the same way I paint. It's like, it keeps me on the edge, and I'm going, oh boy, is this going to be a train wreck at the end of this or not? And I don't know. But it keeps the interest level there, and it keeps the intensity. So I spent a lot more time on these drawings than I'd intended. I thought,
right.
Yeah, and then just getting into it, I'm like, I like this. I like this. So.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not ever going to get my money out of my time for these. But
that didn't even cross my mind.
Fun,
Yeah,
right? You're having fun. You're allowing yourself to be a kid again, maybe.
Yeah. It's just total creation.
Yeah.
It's just it goes even beyond maybe what my vision of what I was thinking. Well, how this is going to turn out.
Right.
It was like, oh wait, look at this. Look at this. Look at these little marks that. I can contain that and play with it. And, yeah. So yeah.
Did it surprise you that happened when you were given this challenge?
No, because that's my nature.
Yeah. Okay.
The way I think. It's a hey, this is floating all around, and how do I tie all this in to some image that.
Yeah, it's just a different media, a different way.
Yeah,
but it's still the process.
It's still me doing it. So it's not. I don't really change the way I see in my mind's eye.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about for the just drawing that you think people should know about?
I think it is actually closer to most artists than it certainly is to me. It's just I don't know whether it's the tactile thing. You're physically, literally closer to that piece of paper. You're right upon it here. You're moving. Your hand is doing this, and your painting can sometimes be a little bit more of a distance thing, or it can be.
Right.
You've got different tools that the drawing thing is just. It feels like it's coming directly.
From God.
Yeah.
In a way,
from wherever and through your hand and out and so that drawing is I think you're really connecting with the artist when you see these drawings.
I've heard this many times now.
Yeah.
There's an emotional connection it's more intimate than there is with painting.
Yep.
I see that.
Yeah.
I think when you understand that and you go look at drawings, all drawings by all artists, I think all of a sudden you see something differently.
Oh yeah. No.
I mean, I'm starting to look at drawings differently than I had in the past. The gestural movement or the whatever it might be.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and it's just I love looking at drawings. I can go into a museum and there can be the most beautiful paintings, but boy, if there's some drawing, and that can include scratchboard or etching, printmaking, because that's all the
same thing,
same idea,
right?
And I'll just be fascinated by that stuff. Yeah.
That's what you do. And it comes back to for artists, again, it seems like it's always the earliest memory that they have is drawing.
Totally.
Yeah, right?
Totally. You're making a line. I have a little granddaughter. She's like three and a half.
Right.
And you see these videos of her. My son sets her up with a little easel, and she's there, but she's doing these, and that's always amazing to me because those are, you're going, I couldn't do that right now, because I know too much, right? I've learned too much to have that kind of sense of freedom anymore, and
she has no boundaries.
No, it's all new to her. It's all this is the first line like that I created or whatever, right? Yeah, no memory of it.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Francis, thank you for being part of the Masters
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very
Appreciate
insightful. Always insightful with you. All right, very good. Thanks. Yeah. Every one of these, I learned something from every one of these things.
Yeah, I believe it. I think it's just...
It shocks me every time. It does. It's like...
Well, no, but it's your interest, see. That's your interest brings that out of the artist.
Yeah.
If it was just like, a series of questions, right?
It is what I'm trying to understand.
And it's totally different. It's I know the people in the magazines and whatever, they do their job, and some of them are very good at it and everything, but they don't always get it because they're looking for
answers,
sound bites and stuff.
I get it. I'm looking for inspiration.
Yeah,
is what I'm looking. This is closer to the paper, which allows me a more intimacy.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Completely makes sense.
Sure.
But I wouldn't have known that unless you said it.
Yeah.
It's intuitive, it's obvious, but unless you hear it from an artist and show it, how are you going to know that? I love these things. All right.
Cool.
I had all my hair cut off in Philadelphia, a random moment, over a glass of wine with a good girlfriend.
A lot of bad shit can happen over a glass of wine.
I've been waiting to do it for years. So
that's funny. And how did you feel afterwards?
I felt great. Like it's something that had been marinating for a really long time, so it just felt like kind of coming home in a way. It was just, I used to have short hair when I was younger, so trying to reclaim some youth.
Is that like when a painting hits you too, by the way?
Yeah.
I would
like
think
the
so,
feeling
right?
of coming home. It feels familiar, even though it's only just been produced.
Yeah, and ruminating about the process. And, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So we have Jill Carver on. We're talking already about life, but you're here for my Masters of Drawing show. And what I wanted to just talk a little bit, this is a more intimate relationship in this podcast about the process and drawing, to get an understanding of what it is about drawing that makes an artist. Because without drawing, I don't think you can be an artist of this type. Do you? Can you be an artist?
Right. And even though most of the products that I put out there are oil and canvas,
Right.
I still view painting as drawing. If you can't draw, you can't paint.
Right.
It's absolutely fundamental.
Yes.
I think what was so exciting about this show was it's kind of like coming back to your first love.
Right.
You know, like I think a lot of us as kids started out drawing.
Yeah. I hear it's the first image in your mind as a child for many of the artists.
Right. I was definitely visual. I mean, I think realizing that as I get older, you know, that observing and the visual language is my language.
Yes.
For some it's music, for some it's literature,
Yes.
or foreign languages, but I am acutely visually aware. So that's interesting. But for me, you know, as a landscape painter, drawing these days has become a kind of means to an end. It tends to be preparatory work. Figuring out design. So those tend to be fairly rough for me. They tend to be sharpies. And I remember us doing a podcast when you announced the drawing show.
Right.
And on my wish list, my bucket list of things to do in the next year was getting back to drawings for drawing's sake. With the intention of that being the finished, beautiful product.
Right. Which is a complete different process as I'm learning from all the artists that I've talked to. Is like, most drawing is preparatory, as you said.
Yeah.
And then for this show, it clicked differently.
Right. I mean, I think you said get creative and you gave us great license with freedom and everything. So I think either people wanted to show how they prepare for a painting.
Right.
Or they wanted to get back to something that they loved decades ago.
Right.
And I just incidentally found a sunflower drawing that I did as part of my A level when I was 17, 18. And so there was all these kind of concurrent
because you did two sunflowers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd kind of found that drawing, plus I had a huge crop of sunflowers outside my studio this year, and they got nipped really early, but they were really elegant even in their kind of early death, you know, with their bowed heads and this flush of color that was still there. They hadn't turned brown. So I was looking at these every day and I just thought, wow, okay, I just found this drawing that I did of a sunflower when I was 18.
Right.
I wonder how it would be different now.
How was
it? Really intrigued me.
Yeah, and how was it different?
So the one I did when I was 18, very, very tight, very botanical, I would say, in its detail. There is, it's not as good as I remembered it.
That sucks.
Though they still gave me an A for it.
Yeah.
But there was no representation of light and shadow. And I didn't even doubt for a moment that that would be part of these sunflower drawings.
Yeah.
With some indication of where the light's coming from, and playing with that, and playing with the texture difference between the texture of the actual dried sunflower and then the shadow on the smooth table surface. Like I knew there was going to be a juxtaposition between those two textures.
And the shadows literally tells you about texture then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we probably didn't even think about it when you're 17.
No,
18.
and you weren't even thinking about light and shadow.
Yeah.
You were just thinking about literally
making it look
botanical
like
form.
exactly like
exactly like that. And I overworked it when I was 18. And I kind of remember that happening. Like I was loving the process and the intensity.
Right.
And the cathartic nature of being that absorbed. I remember that experience intensely of drawing that sunflower. And I know I didn't want that experience to end. And I kept going and I overworked it.
Yeah, because you thought if I just keep pushing, it'll even get better.
Yeah, I just wanted to stay in that zone.
Oh, you just want to be creative.
Yeah.
You knew you found something that excited you.
I was just probably at the happiest when I wasn't having to deal with people. I was just in a little room with me and a dead sunflower. Like I could have spent weeks doing
Isn't that funny that 40 or 50 years later,
Yeah.
that it's you chose sunflowers to do it?
Yeah,
again?
it just, I really wanted to follow my nose and be creative.
Yeah.
With this show, I think you gave us great freedom to do that.
Yes.
And so I didn't go in with preconceived ideas.
Nice. That's exactly what I wanted.
I just wanted to literally follow my nose. What am I intrigued by right now? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a few artists. I think Susan Lyon and Scott Burdick especially were like, because I said, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
And
right.
they're like, right on.
When does anybody ever say that? Right?
Yeah. No,
So,
I mean, as a
it was
dealer.
wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
No, give me horses in a canyon.
Right.
No.
Right.
I just wanted the best process of what you could
Right.
do
Yeah.
with the media of drawing.
Right. I was just really intrigued to see where that would go so many decades
Yeah.
later.
And the one drawing that you did of the cottonwood is so different and interesting. Can you just
The mesquite tree.
The mesquite tree.
Yeah.
Whatever that tree is, it's just just to describe what you did. I can't even explain it, but I know it gutturally hits me as something that has great merit.
Okay. Well, thank you. It felt like I was breaking permission boundaries with that piece. And again, I had no idea how that was going to materialize. I'd fallen in love with the tree when I was here. I'd done a demo for a local plein air group
Yes.
in that park. And my demo was of the palm trees down by the water, but every time I walked back to my car, it's like, damn, that tree is just really special.
Right.
So I made numerous visits back to it. And again, this was before you'd announced the show,
Yes.
I believe. And there was just something about, it's not the 200-year-old one that's down there, but it's got to be over 100 years.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Just real burly and knotted,
Right.
like these heavy kind of lymphedema limbs,
Yeah.
just somehow defying gravity.
Right.
But still with these new little runner shoots coming out of it.
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed to sum up so much. And I went back 3 times and visited and took photos. And then I've never really liked the color palette of mesquite trees, that kind of green with this dark charcoaly brown. But when you then announced the drawing show, I just thought, well, that,
There it
a
is.
mesquite tree just in graphite is just going to really kind of hit the mark for me in terms of trying to get the texture of that, of the tree. The grid-like thing...
That's what interests me.
That came later on. So I fell in love with this tree. There was something about the silhouette, the outline of it, that I knew I wanted to be really accurate about. Like it was that, rather than... I didn't want to get too caught up in the texture of the bark too soon. But the outline of the tree I wanted to get. So I used a standard squaring up technique that you use for transferring information from a photograph or a drawing to another drawing. And in that process of gridding it up, really with the intention of just establishing the outline, well, for one thing, it's really enthralling when you're dealing with something complex and you're just dealing with a little part of it at any one time.
Inch by inch, little
Inch
block.
by inch. And then the whole thing came together, and I had no intention of leaving the grid lines in at all. And I thought, well, there is something that is being brought to the table here in seeing those grid lines.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've always been interested in artists that... I'm very much a kind of shape of color painter. I think some people are tonalists. I'm a color shape painter.
Yeah.
But some of my great heroes experimented with leaving the space between a shape of color. And there is something about that fractured sense that lets the light in somehow. Like it gives a sense of movement. It gives a sense of the light breaking through. And I felt that with the mesquite tree and the grid, that it added another dimension to it. And drawing is a very one-dimensional thing, right? You have a pencil, you have a paper.
Right.
So it's more challenging to bring different dimensions through it. And I just felt like, well, this adds another way in. It's like two interpretations of it at the same time. And then in that frame, the frame had these leaf lines that were appearing in the gold leaf with the patina, and it was just like, as soon as I put the two of them together, I thought, well, this is just meant to be. I'm going to leave the grid in. I'm even going to embellish it, and really emphasize it. And then in other areas, take little visual lines and actually override the grid and get rid of it. So then it just became this other layer,
It took on its own life, basically.
Yeah.
You had the tree, then you put in the grids after you had the tree.
Yeah, well, yes, I used the grid to establish the outline of the tree.
Got it.
And then I just started shading. I started getting caught up
In the grid.
what was in each little thing. This
Right.
little abstract design within, I think it was 1 inch by 2
That's
inch
what it looks
grid.
like, yeah.
And then it became fascinating, but I had no intention of keeping it. I was just enjoying the process, and I thought, well, at some point that grid will disappear
Right.
as I add more and more layers to it. But no, there was something there that I wanted to leave. So
That's so funny.
again, you said
that's-
to us, be creative, and
yeah.
it felt really refreshing and freeing to kind of be in that zone. No intention of how that would turn out.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite drawings in the entire show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's just so unique and different.
It doesn't feel forced, I don't think.
No.
It doesn't feel... I didn't want it to feel gimmicky.
No.
I wanted it to feel like...
No, you could tell it
You
wasn't.
know, yeah.
That it was just free formed.
Yeah,
And that's how. Now I know.
right.
Yeah. Well, you let the creative process just come
Yes.
through, flow.
Yes.
This is it. I'm going with it. It doesn't matter. It's not like, oh, I have to make this to sell it or whatever. It's
Right.
just, this is what we would discussed in the show, and this
Right.
is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
it's something, that tree was something that I wanted to draw. Whether it made the grade for this show or not, I wanted to give myself the freedom to
Yes.
try a variety of things.
Yes.
But yeah.
and the drawing gave you that because the color of a mesquite and the dark brown,
Yeah,
it's kind
right.
of blah. It
Yeah.
really is kind
That
of
dark
blah.
brown with the green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
no,
you
so
think
it
about it,
lends
really
itself
is.
to drawing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because
What I was intrigued by was the process of drawing felt very intense. And I thought, oh, crikey, like I would have thought hours were passing and it would end up being 30 minutes or something. I thought, well, why does that feel so different to painting?
why is that?
Well, I thought about it for a while, and I think, well, it's got to be the process that you've just got pencil and paper. There's not a lot else going on. You're drawing or you're not. Whereas in painting, you're kind of multitasking. You're trying to mix the right color. You're making adjustments as you go. You're thinking about brushwork. Like there's a lot more different disciplines going on at the same time. But with drawing, you're drawing.
Yeah, part
Very
of it
simple.
sounds like painting almost maybe a little more cerebral than drawing.
Right, yeah,
And drawing is more from the gut.
yeah.
Francis Livingston, I just had a podcast with him on this same subject, and he said something to me that would just struck me so, is that he said, the thing about drawing versus painting is with drawing, you're right onto the subject with your hand.
Yeah.
It's a very intimate touch to the paper versus when you're painting, it's more like this in a way.
Right.
And he said there's something about that makes it, I think, more intimate.
Yeah. And definitely my mark making in drawing has been influenced by decades of painting now.
I'm sure.
The expressive brushwork. It's
Right.
like there is no way that graphite pencil was going to just be realistic. I mean, if you look closely at those drawings, it's somewhat hatching rhythm, but there's a rhythm there to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that comes from...
It's not softly shaded
No.
with a precise outline,
Well, because also you're a
different.
painter,
Yes.
right? That's what you do.
Right.
And the drawing is really the process of getting to the painting. And now you're asked to do something as a drawing, and you're a painter.
Right.
But you're a drawer, but you're a painter. And
Right.
so you're attacking it more as a painter's mentality of, whatever that is that you've been doing for 30, 40 years.
Right, yeah.
It's in there. You can't you can't separate it.
No, I loved it. I loved getting back to
that's great.
drawings for drawing's sake. So thank you. It felt
Yeah.
very indulgent, and I'm not going to give it up again for
Yeah.
so long this time. Yeah,
I've heard
for
that from
sure.
a few other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that show has given them permission to have fun again.
Yes, for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to say?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now I'll look at that tree drawing and with new eyes, which will be very interesting for me
Okay.
because I liked it so much.
Be
Now,
interesting. Did you get a sense of why you like the grid?
Unexpected,
Okay.
but worked.
Yeah. Because I think Jordan Walker and I were going back and forth when he saw it on Instagram, and I was like, I think it lets the light in. You know,
Yeah.
we getting back to that Leonard Cohen quote that without the cracks, how does the light get in?
Yeah.
You know, there's something about it that gives it a little bit of a shift in movement.
Yeah, it
or light.
wasn't forced.
Right.
Right. Nothing felt forced. It
Right.
felt like it belonged there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, when I saw it, I was like, is this part of the process or is this something else? It felt like kind of like, and it is kind of the process, but it is something else.
Yeah. An exploration.
Yeah.
Of
And it comes
what
across
if.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
imagery.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Well, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm learning every time. You know, I love drawing, and it gives me new insight to how artists function, look, see the emotional. These drawings are so much more connected to the person, I think, even than
Yeah.
paintings. So
Yeah. There's an intimacy there
there's
in the show.
such an intimacy.
Yeah.
And people need to, when they view drawings like this, I think they have to have fresh eyes.
Yeah.
I know I do.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All these great painters in the show whose work I know, I'm excited to see the drawings. You know, it
can
will
see
get
it.
me inside their brain a little bit more.
I
Yeah.
bet. I
Yeah.
bet that's very true.
Yeah.
So interesting. I love this business. All right. Thank you, Jill.
Well, thank you.
All right. Bye.
Yes.
I'll just talk to you like this.
No.
Yeah.
I'm having more fun doing this today than I've had in a long time, interviewing artists and talking about the drawing process, because they have such a, it's ingrained so deeply into them that there's a thread I can see, and I'm enjoying the thread. And
That's great.
Yeah, I know. It's so, and you of all people has been somebody I know that has used drawing your entire career.
Exactly.
You know, you did this wonderful book that just came out, and the limited edition was an individual drawing for each of the limited edition, which is what, like 50 drawings?
50 drawings. Yeah, we had fun doing that. Or I had fun doing that. I even got to talk to my colleague, Francis Livingston.
Yeah.
Because I can talk when I draw, but Francis can't talk when he draws. I can't talk when I paint,
But he can.
but he can. So if I'm drawing and we get on the phone and want to have an hour-long chat about our career or whatever, if he's painting, he can talk. If I'm drawing, I can talk. But the other way around,
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think I can wield a pencil, a piece of charcoal, even a watercolor, kind of a sketch, without thinking about it too much because I know where I need to go with it. Especially if I'm looking at material, reference material. Get in there. You can always change it. You don't have to worry about it too much. Painting wise, everything's been kind of read out already. I have a way of going about it where I do a sketch. I come up with a composition. I put some things together, Frankenstein some stuff together from reference, and I'll draw that. And then I'll draw it again. I'll color that in. I don't have a lot of those because sometimes I skip a few of the steps.
Right.
And then I'll most likely either grid out a canvas or project it onto a canvas. In a grid, you draw the
Draw on the canvas.
draw on the canvas
Yeah.
with the sketch.
Yeah.
So I'm drawing that again, and then I draw again with a brush to define where I'm going to paint or whereabout I'm going to paint. And and then you start painting. So it's another form of drawing again. So you've got about 4 or 5 steps in a draftsman like
Right, to get to the
process.
painting
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Now, in that process that you're doing, could you talk on the phone the whole time for that kind of thing?
Yes, I think I can.
Yeah.
There are times where it's like, hold it, Francis. I think I
Right.
or whoever else is going. I'll put what I'm doing down and actually talk to them, because I'll get distracted and I'll have to say, no, well, say that again.
Right.
I missed you.
Yeah, because you're in your world.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So when you're in the painting world, you have to be completely and utterly engaged.
Yes.
But when you're in the drawing world, it's so reflexive that it can come out of you in a way that you don't have to do that same thing.
I think that's probably most of it. I think you're generally wielding one thing that has one color to it. Even if you're doing colored pencils,
Right.
it's still one color.
Right.
When you're painting, you're mixing colors. You're kind of trying to figure out, okay,
It's a puzzle.
I want that to come off
Yeah.
as not necessarily realistic, but believable. And so you mix a blue that might have a green to it, maybe a gray, and it's still not there. And you're thinking about, okay, how do I?
It's a puzzle.
I'll
You're
put
trying
maybe
to
some
put the
yellow
colors
in there.
together.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And you
the
put
other-
it on the canvas, and
Yeah.
you have to wipe it off, but still.
takes that other dimension away that you
Exactly.
don't have to think about.
And in drawing, you draw it. If you make a mistake, you draw it again. And in most drawings, you'll see multiple lines in there.
Yeah.
Now, in my drawings, I tend to perfect them maybe a little too much. I'm not trying to degrade my wonderful drawings. I think they turned out just fine. But I this time, rather than the black and white ones that we have here, turned out really well. And the color ones in color pencil turned out well. But I tended in the color pencil to maybe not have those lines, those sketchy lines.
Right.
I went into my painting mode.
Yeah, I was
if
going
you
to
will.
say, you came at it in a different way, though.
Yes.
Right. You're doing a drawing show, and you're trying to maybe make it, I hate to use this word, more perfect.
Right. I'm in competition, so to speak, with my colleagues here,
Yeah.
which is just fine. I don't expect to,
Yeah.
win any accolades or anything like that. But
But you also
I'm
want to
having
show your
fun.
best side of what you can do.
Right. And I want to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that that's my form of fun. I'd love to just go wild and, put several lines. If I'm drawing a face, maybe the ear has lots of lines to it. The hair is real sketchy.
Right.
And I could do that, but I'd look at it and go, well, that's a little too sketchy for a show.
Right.
It's for my little sketchbook.
Yes.
But maybe that's not the right way to think about it. I should go ahead and show people the process rather
no.
than the end process. I'm interested because being an illustrator, you're always interested in an end project where they have to print it out or show it or do something like that. So very much like a show here in the gallery, the end product rather than the middle product.
Right.
And so I tend to be a little, not tight, I just want to clarify it.
Yeah, and I think when you were presented with this show, you looked at it in a certain way and said, okay, this is what I want to do. It's not a process show for me. It's not showing what I do. It's
Right.
more making more a finished piece of artwork.
You have it. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. So Francis told me this very interesting thing, and now I'm going to ask other artists about it because it really, I thought it was very enlightening to me, is that he said, when I paint, it's out here and it's very gestural and everything. But when I draw, it's very much more an intimate sense with just the paper, because my hand, when I paint, is out here away, but when I'm drawing, it's very close onto the media itself. Do you find that to be something that resonates with you?
In an opposite manner, the other way around.
Okay.
When I'm painting, I do get loose
Yeah.
at times. There are areas that I want to almost leave abstract. But since I'm a narrative artist, I want to tell a story with what I
Right.
do. And so there are areas that I have to clarify. But in drawing, it's just a pencil and me. I get to dance with that.
Okay.
It's not this precision kind of a thing. I can go there.
Right.
But I prefer in my sketchbook, I should have brought my sketchbook. You
Yeah.
can see these things that I was at the San Francisco airport waiting to come in. And I was sitting there with Chuck Pyle. We were on the same flight,
Right.
Coincidentally. And he's a wonderful draftsman. He really draw. And for me, he showed me some of the drawings he was drawing of people there.
Right.
And I figured I'll get out my sketchbook and try to do that. And I'm plein air and all that is kind of like, for me, it's like doing jumping jacks and weightlifting for art. And so maybe I'm a little flaccid when it comes to that kind of exercise. And so
Just because you're not doing it that often.
Well, I started drawing this fellow that was looking at his laptop. I figured he was engaged in his laptop and I could draw him, but he looked up and I was looking at him and I was drawing.
Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, I've been caught.
Yeah.
And, but, he went back to looking at his laptop and I thought, Chuck, how do you do this? He says he moves his head around the room. He's drawing, and at the same time he's drawing something over here. He's looking over here and then looks back.
Oh, that's fun.
And he does it again and looks over here and he looks out the window at the airplanes or whatever. So that's all I got was a partial drawing of that fellow. It wasn't too bad. And my shoe, because I crossed my legs and drew my shoe.
Did you? Because your foot was in the way?
No, my foot was there. I'm going, oh,
Yeah,
I can do that.
You just saw literally, and that was the creative thing. Okay, I want to put that in there.
That's it.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It's a sense of humor is what that is.
Yeah. So it's pretty loose, and it's, spent a half hour drawing pictures, waiting for the plane to
Do you find yourself doing that if you're on a plane or going somewhere a long distance that you'll draw at all? Is that something you do?
No, I'm usually looking out the window or
Watching a movie or something? Like that?
Yeah.
I know certain artists will do that. I know.
Yeah. No, I have been known to do that. If I go to say like the Grove, let's say, or on a picnic or with some friends at the beach, I'll take a few pictures with my cell phone, and then I'll sit back if we're sitting around a campfire or something, and I'll start drawing my friends or trying to draw a wave. Now that's a hard thing to draw because the thing is constantly moving, and try to get that. That's a good jumping jack exercise for drawing.
Trying to
draw an ocean wave.
Yeah.
You see a lot of them, but they're not all the same.
Right, it's changing.
Yeah.
Plein air for drawing is what it is.
I tell you, it's that's a tough one.
Yeah. So I'm not a drawer, though. I keep thinking after hearing all these people talking about drawing that I should maybe try it.
I think you'll have fun.
I think I would have fun.
Yeah, because you're a great photographer, a great writer.
I doodle. I will say that I do find myself when I'm talking on a phone or somebody, I'm always drawing like a doodle. But they're not real, they're just geometrics.
Oh no, you'll have fun.
Yeah.
You won't be able to quit. It's an addiction. It certainly isn't. I have to get back into my addiction on that.
Yeah. Have you found that this show has given you that permission to maybe go back to childhood and do more drawing?
Oh yeah. No, this is really fun. And that's the whole thing. We visited some friends. We were supposed to go to a wonderful Roman restaurant south of Tucson here, and the flight was so late that they whipped up something at home. We stayed the night with them, and so they're retired. They're in Green Valley.
Yes.
And they, even though they still own their home in Maryland, they come to Arizona during the winter because they want to get away from winter. Right. And so we're in this retirement community, and people are saying, "So when are you going to retire? When are you gonna... I said, "Artists just don't.
They don't.
If I retired, I'd be painting."
Yeah.
So,
right. No.
What?
No, of course. Very rare for an artist to retire. I think. I've heard of it, but it's rare.
Yeah. I think it was Cezanne, or there was a fellow that painted it was one of the early French Impressionists. He didn't retire, like most of them didn't, but he was actually painting with a 3-foot brush in his sickbed. He wasn't, I don't think he was about to die, but he was, his incapacitated. He couldn't get up or anything, but it was like 1904 or something.
Right.
And he's painting. There's a movie about this fellow.
Right.
Cezanne.
Yeah. Could be Monet, actually, but who knows?
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, whoever it was.
they
that's how I
painted
wanted
from
it.
their bed,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, if I have to do that, I'm going to keep doing that. It's not that I'm compelled to do it, or I've been asked to do a show, or
Right.
asked to do a cover for a magazine or something like that. It's just in me. It'd be like, if I couldn't do it, it'd be like not being able to eat dinner or something,
I would say you're compelled to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
Good.
you are definitely compelled to do it. Yeah, it's who you are. It's your journey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's everything. How you look at yourself as an artist. When you lose that, you're done.
Yeah.
I think to some extent.
Yeah.
Part of you is, at least. I don't know.
Well, I keep telling people who are retiring, and I don't know if this works, but I've noticed this kind of thing where people retire and then they kind of sit back, relax, and fade away. I mean,
That's true. It does happen. They're not engaged with the world.
Yeah, they could maybe brew beer, or make bread, or have
Or
some
create.
something.
To me, my feeling is when you get to that last quarter of whatever it is of your life, philanthropy or creativity are two very
things that
perfect.
keep you.
Yeah, they keep you engaged. They allow you to expand, move forward. And for a lot of people, I think it gives them something they've never looked at or tried to do. They've never tried to create. So many people may have wanted to create and just felt that they were shackled by work, by family, whatever it might be, by their own lack of insecurity. But that just let that all go away. See what you can do. It's not to sell or to do anything else other than for your own inner well-being.
Right. I mean, finish something, and
Write,
it's not that you're
sing,
yeah,
act,
and you look
any of it.
all those things.
Yeah. Or give
Yeah.
back. Philanthropy, I think, gives you the same kind of inner joy
Yeah.
as creativity
No,
does.
it takes me a little bit to go beyond what I know, but yeah, I would think so. I would think that would be very fulfilling.
Yeah. So you get to
think
create. You're creating your whole life, so you don't have to. Your last quarter can be the
I'm
same
very
as
lucky.
the first, second, and third. I mean, it's all the same, which is great.
Well, I encourage people to do that. If you can play a clarinet,
Yeah.
just keep playing and
Yeah.
go out beyond your envelope. Take a sheet music that maybe you can't play and make it so that you can.
Yeah.
I still think you ought to get out your sketch pad.
Yeah.
drawing.
This drawing show may have actually given me the impetus to
Yeah.
do something like
We
that.
can see not everybody does the same thing when it comes to drawing.
Yeah.
Some people are just very accurate. I saw something that was done what's it called?
Blackshear.
Oh, no, there's Thomas Blackshear. He's one of my faves.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
He's great. No, where you have to take a pen and take off the ink.
Oh, yeah.
Those
Scratchboard.
Scratchboard.
Yeah.
There you go. I just
Yeah.
forgot the term.
Yeah.
How accurate that is. I mean, that's drawing
Oh, yeah.
to its ultimate. I'm looking at that going, when I gave
Nelson Tucker. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody has their own technique, their
Right.
own thing for drawing, and drawing doesn't have to be as precise as how I'm talking
Yeah,
about
of course.
it, or it can be loose,
Yeah.
or it can be even abstract drawing. I noticed a few things up here that are semi-abstract.
Yes. Well, and you started at age whatever you can remember, right?
Drawing Mickey Mouse and
Yeah, you probably
whatnot.
can. I find that the drawing is often for artists is literally their first memory of life.
That first speech.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you remember when you started drawing?
Yes. But I think it also was illuminated by my parents too. Oh, Dennis, I remember when you were, in a one of those
Crayon or
things, where we put the food in front of you.
Yeah.
And you
High chair.
would rather draw. You would move the food away, and you'd rather draw
In their high chair.
in my high chair. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So you got a crayon or whatever. You're not going to eat the crayon.
No.
You saw that it does something on there, and you're making a little
Emotion.
sun or something. Or
Yeah. You still are. Anything else we need to say before we?
oh well, I hope everybody enjoys the show. It's an absolutely stunning thing that you've been able to put together, Mark.
fun,
It just, I don't know how you do this. Of course, you have all these people who
Only
are
once.
so special. Only one.
Good
It
staff.
has been a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if we'll do this one again. Just it is demanding, for
Yeah,
sure, but
yeah.
it's rewarding as well.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody else is going to be rewarded as
Yeah,
well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That was the fun. This was a show that was done out of fun, out of interest on my own to learn the process, to see what other artists, how they interpret drawing, and not financially something I go, oh, I'm gonna kill it on this. It's just probably in fact the opposite in some respects, just because they're not as expensive, whatever.
Right.
This came from a different place than will I make money on it. This came from the place of will I learn something.
Perfect, Mark. That's perfect. After looking at your wonderful museum down over here, and looking at Maynard Dixon's drawings, last time I was here was just this past December,
Right.
and I'm in there just like a kid in a candy store, like, oh wait, look, oh, and there's some stuff down here, stuff that he's drawn, and I'm going, wow, the drawing show's coming up. I better get going on it, and I don't see why that didn't inspire you as well. Looking at Maynard's, because I know you like Maynard.
I do.
I do too. But looking at that and kind of going, let's see what my stable has in the way.
No, it is true. Yeah. Well, I knew everybody, and it's not just my stable, it's other people too, other artists that have the capability and are insanely good at it. But it was to see if I know I get the same emotional excitement as I do from a Dixon, seeing other artists do it contemporarily.
Oh, yeah.
And I do. And some of these I'm just like, oh my God, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that some of these would never have been done if they didn't have a reason to do it, that artists didn't have a reason to do it.
Yeah.
That these would never have been, to the light of day.
Well, that, I guess, kind of speaks for my illustration career, where I don't think I would have been able to. I was interviewed the other day by Western Art Collector, and the writer asked me, well, gee, you're not painting cowboys and cowgirls. And I said, well, I do just about everything because of my illustration career.
Right.
Yeah, because you're compelled by an art director, can you do this? And you say yes. If you said no, your career is going to go down. You have to say yes. You can bring it back home, and hopefully you bring back something that takes it out beyond the envelope. So there's where it is. I think that's part of the game, is to be able to come up with something. That's the excitement of it. Come up with something, like you were saying. See what these people come up with in the moment after being asked.
Yeah.
Some people have to be pulled out of their hole by saying, you want to have something fun to do?
Yeah.
Well, here you go.
Yeah. No, and everyone took the challenge. Everyone did.
Yeah.
All these people, like 47 artists. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. each with at least 3, maybe more.
Yeah, it's all,
that's what does that add up? Nearly 200 pieces.
Yeah, there's like 170 pieces or something.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Wow.
Try hanging that show.
Well, good luck with that.
All right. Dennis Ziemienski, thank you.
Mark Sublette, thank you.
All right, let's go have lunch. What do you say?
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, I would like to go have lunch.
I like that one. I don't know if I've ever seen that one.
May not have. It's always good to have things that people haven't seen in your office.
That's true.
I've got Greg Newbold here, and we're going to talk about drawing because we have the Master Show.
Absolutely.
And you brought in this beautiful little drawing sketchbook, and you just have been working on it for how long is this?
I started that one a few months ago, probably in September.
And so when do you do that? I mean, these are, and we'll show some people what it looks like, but there's these beautiful, in my opinion, like completely executed drawings.
Right.
And so what's the purpose of a sketchbook like that?
For me, it's
for you.
Exploration of possibilities. Like that's usually where my best ideas kind of start to take form, like in the sketchbook, just because you get it down on paper and then you can see that your idea is good or not good.
And it's interesting because they're mainly figurative pieces in there. Maybe well, there's a few aren't, but
there's a few in there.
And I don't think of you of doing cowboys and things like that.
Well, during COVID, when everyone was locked down, I started a sketchbook that was just cowboys, and a friend of mine online. We were all online, and he said, "Here's your drawing challenge: guys with hats." And I'm like, I can do that.
Well,
So
you
I
can
just
do anything.
so I just started drawing,
Right.
movie cowboys or real cowboys, and did a whole bunch of them. And it's just sort of,
Metamorph.
yeah, it just sort of continued. Like it's like if I'm sitting with the family at night and we're watching a movie or something, I'll be drawing.
In one of those sketchbooks.
Yeah,
And so it gives you inspiration, but is it also just a way to relax, almost meditatively?
absolutely.
I would
Yeah,
think.
I mean, drawing is like the first thing I actually remember doing. It's like my first love.
How old were you when you remember that?
Seriously, earliest memories, 3, 4.
With crayons
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah,
just drawing.
just whatever.
And that was always a thing, I'm sure, right?
It was. As I got older, my dad worked in advertising, and he would go to press checks at the newspaper or whatever. And he'd bring home these like big rolls, the end rolls of
Right.
newsprint. There's still some paper on it, but
Right.
not enough to print on. So he'd grab those and bring them home for us. And when I was younger, the basement of our home was unfinished. So my brother and we'd like roll it out on the cement, and we'd do these big murals of
When you smell that
stuff.
print smell, does it bring you right back there?
A little bit. Yeah,
would
it does
think.
it has a scent to it.
Oh, very does. Yeah, I worked
And,
as a paper boy for years. So.
Yeah, and I mean it was unprinted, so it didn't quite have the same ink smell
Right.
as newspaper, but yeah, it had a definite newsprint paper smell. And we just roll them out and get the crayons and the markers out, and we do big battle scenes and
Right.
underwater scenes,
Right.
submarines and divers and stuff, and sharks.
And that continued all the way through junior high, high school.
So I remember drawing all the way through elementary school, junior high. By the time I hit junior high, people were noticing that
They were calling
you're
you
a
the
lot
artist.
better than most people.
Yeah, you were the class artist.
Yeah.
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 That's so. I mean, it's just I see it in every artist.
It's
you know?
it's so common. The kid that just never stopped drawing.
Right. The
Yeah.
Kid. That's
'Cause, like-
that'd be such a good book.
Because most kids will draw. All my friends used to draw up through somewhere probably around 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
Right.
Then they realize that they're not as good as that guy.
Right. You. Yeah. Exactly.
That was me.
Right.
And they, or somebody tells them that they're not
Good.
very good, or it's silly.
Mm-hmm.
You're wasting your time.
Do people tell you that at all? Say, oh, quit doing this. There's more important things to do than drawing.
Luckily, I mean, you did hear it once in a while, but luckily my parents were pretty supportive. They gave me art supplies all the time.
saw it.
One year for Christmas, I really wanted these big molded plastic dinosaurs, and I thought that'd be the greatest present ever, right? These cool dinosaurs. And Christmas morning rolls around, and I got a big dinosaur book, fully illustrated dinosaur book, and a box of Sculpey clay, the kind you can mold and then bake in the oven, and some acrylic paints. And then there was a note from Santa Claus that said, "We think you'll have more fun making your own."
And you did. Of
I
course.
did. It was so much more fun. It was so fun. And that, just things like that.
Right.
I'd always have mom and dad would buy supplies and kind of kept me going.
Any of your other siblings in the arts? Are they?
So I have a brother that draws a little bit. He's a restoration architect.
Okay.
So he mostly draws buildings and
Right.
details from buildings and things.
Yeah.
But I got a sister that's a piano
Right. So creative.
major. She graduated. She got a master's in piano.
Yeah. Yeah. Very creative.
And so she's very artistic. My mom actually paints. My aunt, my mom's sister, paints.
Yeah. The gene.
And my mom didn't paint while I was growing up, though. She's painted since she retired, got older.
Yeah. Once you
Well,
get
retired from,
Right.
being a mom.
Right.
Not really. She's still my mom. I love my mom. She's awesome.
Good for you.
So
So when you are creating now and today, do you, because you do two things. One, you still do illustration on time to time, right?
yeah.
Book illustrations.
yeah, I mean, I've done a dozen children's books.
Right. And you're still doing those on occasion.
When I can get the
Right.
project that I like.
Right. And does that require the graphic skill set when you do those, or is it just the same as painting?
Well, a number of years ago, I started painting digitally and using Photoshop. And because that's the way the industry was going.
Yes, I see.
And in order to stay relevant with that shift, I decided
illustration.
In the illustration world, I decided I better learn how to paint digitally.
Yeah, or be left behind.
Yeah, and it was actually quite a blessing to be able to stay on that train for a while.
Yeah.
While I figured out what was next, which is this, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I do still do some illustration from time to time, but my big focus right now is the painting. So
And so, do you use drawing for what you do now? Do you draw?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you do, right? You draw out little sketches and kind of
the drawings that you saw in that little sketchbook,
right.
Especially the landscape ones, will eventually turn into paintings.
Yeah.
Because I've worked out the composition, and the value patterns and the shapes, and
That's the hard part.
that's the hard part. And so I do that, and then I transfer it onto my board, my canvas. And it's like I realized these last few years that I'm a draw first kind of guy, and I like to design my paintings before I
Go after.
Yeah.
And do you think that relates back to being an illustrator?
Yeah, I think so.
would think.
Because when you're working with a client, they don't like surprises.
Right.
And so the typical process was I do little thumbnail drawings,
Right.
just that big, send it to them. They like the concept. I'll do a bigger drawing, more finished, more detail, basically a miniature black and white of what the painting will be. And then once they approve that, then I paint it. Yeah. And I stick to it because no surprises, they don't want surprises.
Right. No, nobody wants surprises.
Nobody wants surprises.
So this show, Masters of Drawing, was right up your alley.
Yeah. When you said we're going to do this show, and I'm like, I'm all over that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. That one sounds fun.
Yeah. So is there anything else we should discuss about the drawing process that you think is interesting or important for people to know as an artist?
So I will share that for a number of years when I was deep in my illustration career, I didn't draw very much unless I was getting paid. And so my sketchbooks kind of...
Did you equate drawing with work at that point? And
I think I did. I think I lost sight of the joy that drawing brings, and just drawing for the sheer fun of it.
It's like an athlete.
Yeah,
and it's like, and they don't play baseball on the side.
That
probably.
Drawing muscle started to atrophy, and so it's been nice the last few years to just sort of give myself permission to just draw for fun. And a lot of those drawings end up becoming paintings, which is great. And but yeah, I mean, drawing, it's the basis for me of everything. It's like if I draw it first, I start to understand my subject, and when you know your subject better, it's just easier to paint it.
It's chapter 1 of a book.
Yeah.
It's your first paragraph.
Yeah.
And you have to have that good paragraph before you can write the book.
Yeah, and you know how that goes.
I do.
The writing.
Yeah.
And the parallels are
exactly the same.
Very similar.
I can see it.
Yeah.
You have to get it. That first chapter is so important. And the basis of for you, at least your process, you have to have something like that.
Right.
Drawing wise, to have the composition and understanding where you want to go.
Yeah. And this gray paper sketchbook that I've started using is really fun because all of your midtones are kind of there already. and you put in the darks, you put in the lights, and then you start to modulate in between until it looks really nice. And it's just a fun way to draw. So I've really enjoyed kind of getting into that toned paper type of drawing, which is mostly what's in the show.
Right, I saw that. So, yeah, and I think maybe drawing gives you the ability or the permission to fail.
Yeah. It's just a piece of paper.
Right.
It's like I had a mentor once who used to joke, and he said the only one taking a risk here is the canvas. In other words, it's like take a few more chances.
Right. Get close to the action.
See what you really want to do with this picture, because the possibilities are limitless.
Yeah.
When you pick up that pencil, it's like there's nothing there.
Right.
Until you start to put down a mark.
Right.
And then you can build off that mark, and then it becomes something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the magic of drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, pick up that pencil. That's a good way to end it, I think. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you being part of the show. You're a master of drawing, for sure.
I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's very good. Very interesting. I love these little vignettes into that process. It's so important to artists.
It's
clearly so important.
It's like I can't see myself doing anything else. And I've felt that way since I was probably in 8th or 9th grade.
Yeah.
And so, that's it. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. Thank you. All right. So, you collect, I have Roseta Santiago here, but you collect, we were just talking about the drawings of some of the great masters.
Yeah, I have Maynard Dixon, I have A Burning House, I have Kaus, and some contemporary drawings, because I really love to see the line work. And what I also started doing in my own paintings is I started revealing the underdrawings and leaving them visible. This is a new thing I'm doing. I'm showing the process because I love the drawing part.
You think that's inspired somewhat by seeing these old masters that are hanging in your house?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I don't collect paintings, I collect drawings because I can see and feel what inspired them.
It's that emotional sensitivity, intimacy, right? I keep hearing
right.
this.
People don't like to reveal those secrets or mistakes, but when you're drawing or laying out a painting or something, you make a mistake or you make a line that is holy to me. And I want to leave those things so that the viewer can see things I see. They don't get to see just what I covered up. I think that's important.
Yeah, a little bit of the process.
It's like an X-ray.
Interesting. This, as you said, the skeleton.
Right. I love that. And I know people like McCreary Jordan was telling me she does clay sculpture over skulls and things for forensic work. And it fascinated me. And it's just more of what the inner structure is. And spiritually, you can go all the way in with the inner structure of a painting. Spiritually, what is it? The inspiration, the beauty.
And that kind of rings true for what you like to do. There is that kind of, right? I mean, your paintings have a spiritual sense of being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want the message of the person. I want that real essence of the model to be shown.
Right.
And the only way I can figure that out is to study them and to portray them with all the mistakes, all the line work, all the beauty. I'm trying to leave that for the viewer instead of saying this is the closed painting, the beauty of what I see only. I want you to see all of it, the whole journey of the creativity. I think that's exciting.
Yeah. It is. Well, and you have the ability because you've drawn all your life, right?
Yep. Well, as a little girl, but I didn't start working until 2000 when I came here. Oh, I came to the Southwest to have a career and try to share that with people.
But you were drawing as a kid, early on, probably.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you do your drawings you do drawings for your preparatory work, I assume, for your paintings? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do drawings. Sometimes I use a brush. I call it drawings with
Yeah.
a brush. Yeah,
And do you have fun doing drawings?
I love it.
Yeah.
But I don't, a lot of times I'll be drawing with a brush and move right into the painting. But then there's a point where you can stop. And there's a point where you have to evaluate, what are you doing with this? You know, do you think, is this a commercial? Is this a painting that you want to sell? And you get into that little bit of a struggle.
And the struggle is trying to decide what you're creating. Is this
sellable? Do people want to see this?
Right.
Well, now I'm doing what I only want to do, and that's let the drawing show up, because I know it's not about, it's what I want to say.
Yeah. That takes maturity, though, right, to get there?
Yeah, I think I've gotten there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, because
so.
especially as younger artists, I think that they try to draw or paint, in this case, to commercial. They want to sell, they want to make a living, all that.
Right.
Instead of going with that gut, deep kind of, this is what really inspires me, and I'm just going to paint this, and if it sells, great. And if it doesn't, not get too upset.
Right. There's all kinds of ways of saying bread and butter work to make a living, this and that. But when I walk into my studio and see something that I did for myself, I get excited.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I did that. Wow.
It's magical, isn't it?
Yeah, because it happens instantly.
Yeah.
It's happening. You're in the zone, you paint, you draw, and you see it. Even the mistakes, if you wipe out something, there's some beauty in there that you don't want it to disappear. So I end up taking pictures of it, and then it goes away. And I wonder, well, you can't go back and create that, that movement. So it must be like music.
And writing.
And writing.
Same kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
No, you
Can't overthink it.
uh-uh.
You have to catch it right when it's happening.
And there is, I find in writing, when I'm doing it well, it's magical. I don't know exactly how I did it.
Would you call it streaming?
Oh, yeah. for
Yeah,
sure.
I call it streaming.
Yeah.
I find myself actually creating poetry by speaking, streaming. And the same thing happens with drawing. It isn't every single time. I think I would probably kill myself by doing that. But the fun of it, that you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave it. It's really a draw.
Yeah, when you hit it. When you're streaming.
Yep.
What I call the magic.
Yeah, you
when
don't
it's
want to
happening.
get off of that.
Yeah. Because it doesn't happen all the time.
Right. But you also get to confirm something about yourself and about how much you love what you're doing, maybe, and the caring and your experience, and it all builds up and it starts coming out as an expression. And wow, it's, even as a child, you dream of those things, I think.
Now, in this show, it was a little different because I want you to do drawings, specifically drawings, and not, I didn't give you any parameters. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
But I'm assuming it was a little different on how you approached what you were going to do versus if you just use your drawing as a process. They're more finished, I would say.
Right. I did more drawing when I didn't know how to paint. I would read stories and try to draw an image from it. They were mainly Japanese legends and things like that. But with this, you have to draw a lot to be loose or warmed up to really get those lines in your hands and the materials moving together, I think. And I see people like Thomas Blackshear, who I see that he does this every second of his life. I see that warm, beautiful, loose line, free. It's free. And that's what I aspire to do more. I do it with the brush when I'm painting a certain way for a long time. But the drawing was a great way to come back to that.
So, is there anything else that we've missed about drawing that you want to share?
I've been talking away. No,
that's good. Yeah.
No, I like all the materials. I've been studying just things that are available to work with.
Yeah.
But now I'll do more. And I'll probably stay with the drawing in the painting. I want to fuse them.
So this show actually changed the process a bit for you?
It gave me confidence.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, it gave me confidence to want to show people the drawing part. So thank you.
Isn't that amazing that it can happen at this point in your career?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well,
I
thanks.
think that's so cool.
It's great. And anything where there's support with someone or, a gallery or someone that understands the process, that experiences the process, it's important for the human being who's the artist to know that there's somebody there saying, you go do that. It's great. You know, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Thanks.
I'm glad I told you to do
You
that.
did. I'm glad you told me to do it. Thanks.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the rest of this show. I admire so many artists.
There's so many
here.
great artists in
Really.
there. I know. And you're right there with them, kid.
Well, thanks.
I can tell you that
Still
for
not
sure.
there yet, I think, but I'm trying.
Oh, yeah. You wait and you're going to be very excited to see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
All right, Roseta, thank you.
Thanks,
I
Mark.
appreciate it. All right, I'll let you go and you can go look at
Okay.
the art.
Yeah.
All right.
And Maynard Dixon.
Oh, yeah. Wait till you see it. You're going to be very excited.
Oh, God.
This is the first ring I've ever owned other than my wedding ring. So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah.
And where did you get it?
This is from the Mark Sublette Medicine Man Gallery, believe it or not.
Well, we gave them away, yeah, for you guys, because you are masters of drawing.
Well, thanks.
Yes, you are. That's how you got in this show. You had to have something that relates to that skill set, which clearly you do. You're young, but you've been drawing forever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Is that the first thing you probably can ever remember, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely the first medium that I've ever used. And for many years, it was my entertainment because it was the only thing I liked to do as a kid. So it's still a fundamental piece of a lot of what I do in the studio. And yeah, really.
So
good.
when you were a kid, do you remember the first time you really started drawing? Like, do you even have that memory, or has it always been there with you?
Yeah, I don't remember a first time. No, it was just kind of the thing that I did.
There, right?
Yeah.
And so if mom wanted to find you or dad, it was he's with the crayons or drawing or somewhere in his room?
Yeah, never crayons, pencil straight away.
All the way?
Yep.
And what were your subjects that you liked to do? Let's just say as you got a little older, junior high, high school.
Yeah, I mean, I was at that point starting to get into considering a career in entertainment design. So I was doing a lot of my own iterations of concept art for different characters and creatures for properties that I was inventing myself. So all kinds of different world building for potential movies, video games, all kinds of things.
Right.
But it was all my own.
And that was even starting as a junior high?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very serious about it from a pretty young age. I think maybe around like 6th or 7th grade, I decided that's what I was going to do with my life. So I just went for it.
How did you even come into that? I mean,
Yeah.
how did you even know what that was?
Well, I was really interested in two things, and I still am, and they were science fiction and fantasy illustration in different books and movies, and then
Right.
natural history. So biology, ecology. I just love all the weird animals and plants in the world and how everything exists
Right.
together. So I kind of found out through a few books. I think there were some books about the concept art of Star Wars and some other stuff like that were in the local library when I was a young kid, and I saw those, and I thought, oh, people actually
Do this as a job.
think about weird animals and stuff to put into movies and book illustrations. So I could do that. That could be me. So
So interesting.
Yeah.
And so you went to the Rhode Island School of Design, right?
did.
Yeah. And what was your degree in?
I majored in illustration.
In
there.
illustration. So, I mean, it's been fundamentally part of who you are, drawing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you draw every day?
I don't. These days, mostly I draw for thumbnails. So figuring out small, really tiny sketches for
Process.
yeah, exactly. Figuring out composition and different elements of design that are going into more finished work. But I still do drawing for illustration work as well every now and then. So
Right, but when I say, do you draw every day, you're not even considering those little process drawings as being drawings.
yeah, I consider them as drawings, and actually I've got a page of them in the show.
Yeah.
So they are definitely drawings, but until now I've never really considered them finished work to
Right,
exhibit.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you do every painting, painting you do, do you always do a compositional drawing?
I do for larger work. If I'm doing something like a 24 by 36, I'll definitely
Yes.
be doing a compositional sketch for it, because if I'm going to spend a lot of time on something at that scale, I want to make sure it's going to work out. So
And you can
usually-
tell.
Yeah, yeah. If I have an idea and I don't immediately think, oh, I can do this. This is going to be a simple composition. Like I can just put a saguaro in the middle of
Right.
the composition. There it is. If it's something more complex than that, I need to work it out. And sometimes I'll just do that as a small painting and sort of mush it around until it works. But other times, if I really want to nail in something, especially if the perspective is sort of a little unorthodox, or I'm trying to arrange things in ways that aren't typical and like kind of experimental for me that I don't usually do, I'm going to want to figure that out in a small sketch. And I'll do, 15, 20, 30 iterations of these little thumbnail drawings until it works sometimes.
And is that in the studio or is
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always in the studio.
Yep.
When you're out, let's say just plein air, you're doing plein air paintings too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you do those for A, just them, and B, as studies to use for your major paintings,
Yes.
or bigger paintings, studio paintings.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I am actually kind of drawing in those plein air paintings, and for any
Oh, yeah.
large painting I do, I just don't do it with graphite. I do it with paint. So
Right.
I'll take a small brush and I'll kind of do simple lines of placement for where everything is in the composition to figure out the design, and then that gets covered with paint with bigger brushes.
And do you use your hands differently when you're using a small brush like that?
No.
I mean, or let me just ask this. When you're drawing, it's a different kind of maneuver than it is when you're painting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's much closer, right? To, first of all, for just drawing, you're right there on the paper, right?
Yeah.
Versus painting, you're farther away, looking and doing differently, right?
It can be a different maneuver, but it's also remarkably similar. It's only different if I'm doing like a charcoal drawing, because I have to hold the charcoal very differently than how I hold the brush. If it's like a compressed charcoal, it's just completely the side of that, and it's getting formed in, massed in. If I'm drawing with a pencil, I do it pretty similarly to how I hold the brush, and I hold the brush at the base of the long part of it, and so the actual brush tip will be up here. Same thing if I'm holding a pencil. I hold the pencil at the base, and I have a long point sharpener is what it's called, which allows me to get a very, very long sharp edge at where the actual graphite comes out. And then I can hold it far back and use more of my arm instead of just my wrist. Because if you hold it way up close to the tip,
Right.
you're just getting wrist action. You're not
Right.
getting anything else. But if you hold it back, you can get more movement with your whole arm. And if you have that long point on your pencil, it allows you to use the side of that graphite a little bit
see.
more, so you can get larger, wider marks. And it actually feels a lot more like painting than if you're using like a micron pen or a mechanical pencil that
That
just
makes
has a
sense,
point.
yeah. And do you have to sharpen the pencil fairly periodically when you're doing that?
Yeah, and you turn it as you work, and by constantly turning it, it means that you're not wearing any one side down
see.
more than the other. Yeah,
And is that a skill set you learned at school, or is that something just from trial and error?
a bit of both. Yeah. Some aspects of it I learned from school. I learned from online process videos of other people doing stuff, and then a lot of it just by feeling it out. So yeah.
And what do you think your drawing skill set is now compared to, let's say, when you were doing it in high school or college, even when you were drawing all the things? It's because you're mainly painting now.
Yes, I am. And it's funny because When I was in college and I had just started painting and I was figuring that out, my paintings looked like drawings. They were very tight. They were very highly detail oriented. Everything was small brush strokes. Whereas now I paint more volumetrically and my drawings reflect that. So I draw like I'm painting, whereas before I used to paint like I was drawing. So I've completely switched the way that I think about
And what does
things.
that mean, volumetrically?
Yeah, so I'm thinking more about large forms, light and shadow, not so much focusing on individual details, except for in areas of focus where I really
see.
want the viewer to look at something.
Oh, interesting.
So I draw that way too. That's what the long point is for. So I can mass in a large area of tone very quickly and just sort of focus on those elements rather than every single tiny little leaf on the tree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the different, artists that are out here and how they attacked it. Some are very much individual little stroke, dabs, and others. I can see it now, having described what you do in your bigger landscapes. I can see how you were doing that.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And it was really exciting for this show too, because I haven't used charcoal in like 10 years. It's been a long time. So I thought, okay, I want to do some big drawings for this and I want to use charcoal for them because you can get some softer edges a lot more easily and it feels more like painting when you're drawing with charcoal versus with graphite. So it was fun to get back into that and feel out that process again.
Yeah, and I think that's what this show allowed is artists to actually have some fun.
Oh yeah. Well,
Right? It's like, I don't do this normally.
Yeah.
And get back to that childhood, fun, that love of what you do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it has been fun. And, I really like, too, that I decided to put a page of those thumbnail drawings into this exhibition.
Yeah, you're the only one who did anything like that, too. Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, I hope that it's fun for people to see because it's part of my process. And I show the final painting inspired by one of those thumbnails right alongside it. So you can kind of see the very beginning stages of where I start an idea and then where it ends up. So,
is there anything you would like to tell anybody, as we finish this up, about drawing, things that you could share to the audience that we haven't talked about?
I think that drawing is sort of synonymous with design, and you're not always drawing with, say, pencil or charcoal. That doesn't necessarily mean drawing just because it's dry media, but you have to think about the concept of drawing and figuring out your design and shapes and composition and forms. All of that is an element of drawing, and it happens in paintings too. And I think that, having that skill set of being able to understand how to observe the world around you and then push it further and expand upon it is really important in all mediums. But it's drawing in dry media is where it comes through sort of in its most simplistic, basic form. And that's not to say that dry media is simple. It has its own complexities that painting doesn't have.
I'm sure.
So it's just a good skill set to have no matter what you're trying to do. And when I was in college, the entire first year for all students, no matter what they were going to go into, film or animation or furniture design, whatever, everybody had prerequisites of drawing, needing to have that skill set, that foundational skill set, in order to go into anything else, because it's just the fastest, most efficient way to figure out principles of design is through drawing. So it's important stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Though I would think photography also gives you a good sense of quick, easy way to look at composition.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. In terms of like cropping and arranging things and setting it up.
Right.
And then that's fantastic. That's a great skill set to have if you are working from photo reference as a painter as well. But what you can't do with photography is decide, okay, here's my reference. I want that thing to be shorter. And then you make it shorter. That's much harder to do with photography versus drawing. So you're able to, even if you don't want to do any kind of drawing in terms of, finished exhibition work and you want to be a photographer, you're a fine art photographer, having the ability to draw just in terms of design is going to help you frame your shots a lot better in the future too. So
Very good. I think we just leave it on that.
Yeah, awesome.
Frame your shots through drawing and you'll be able to create. Basically.
You got it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. Thank you for coming to the show and giving us such a wonderful body of work and just sharing your thoughts with us.
Well, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I know. I can tell you're always happy.
Yeah.
Are you never not happy?
I try not to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've met you on many occasions now, and you always seem to be very up and have that sense of joy.
Yeah. I mean, the world's got a lot of cool stuff going on, and I'm happy to be here.
I want to take that and bottle it and Jordan Joy.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, we could definitely put that in the gallery, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just watch his face. Oh, that's joy. That's joy. I like joy. All right. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.